Excerpt from Homecoming by Alex Barr. Terry opened the door. Well, he was shiny bald. Rosalind hardly recognised him. But of course, she hadn't seen him since he married Jill well before Gulf War I, whereas Bernard had seen him a year before Gulf War II at their father's funeral in Abergele. By that time, he was thinning. He shook Bernard's hand crisply and briefly, a business handshake. When Rosalind hugged him hard, he looked embarrassed. Come along in. But there was a great deal in the way. Wooden gate, iron gate, porch door, front door, hall furniture, living room door. Their suitcases came to rest, looking forlorn, Bernard thought, after the bumps and scrapes. So, said Terry, with a round Mancunian ow. He looked at them briefly, then at the room, as if trying to guess how it seemed to them. So, here we are, said Bernard. How's Jill, Terry? Off on holiday. Bernard and Rosalind sank into unfamiliar chairs, while Terry made a pot of tea. A young woman in lycra leggings with short blonde hair came in, an au pair perhaps. Oh, hiya, she said, and rummaged in a pile of magazines. Rosalind suddenly recognised her profile. It was their niece, Angela. She waited for her to find what she was looking for and then hug and ask, what was it like in the States? We'll see you. Angela went out with the mail order catalogue. It was Terry, when he bought the tea, who asked the question. Bernard and Rosalind looked at each other. Where could they start? Rosalind began. Well, it's different from here, for sure. I've already noticed several differences already. She paused, about to begin the list, and was saying, one is, when Terry cut in. These madmen, these militias, sounds like got out just in time. Well, Rosalind looked puzzled. I didn't know any militia members. A fellow in Mulvane drove a Humvee, but he was a loner, unconnected. Of course, Terry grinned. You were into uniforms, Bernard. What? In your business. No, not uniforms, Terry. Workwear. Contract hire of workwear. Terry smiled broadly. Do workers in the States really have their name on their overall, like on little embroidered badges with Dave or Sue? Of course. Terry's face turned pink with amusement. They realised he was laughing silently. He laughed for a long time. They joined in politely, briefly. In return for 2 months' food and lodging, Bernard was to help Terry in his electrical repair business. That had been arranged by letter. Further ideas when you get here. Bernard thought this referred to a possible partnership, but as the days went by and they fell into a routine, Terry seemed to feel no need for discussion. When he talked, it was to complain about the council, the VAT, or the customers with delusions about prices. By the second week, Bernard was agitated. The heavy wire screens on the window made him feel caged. The radio channel Terry favoured played songs he'd known in his youth. It was as if, for 40 years, nothing had happened, as if he'd never left Manchester. Terry, he said suddenly, halfway through a slack morning, this is your decision, okay? But if there's some way I can fit in permanently into this organisation, tell me. Terry didn't look up and nod and say, sure, Bernard, I'll think about it. He just scowled at the rusted terminals on a solenoid he was fixing. Shit, he said. After a moment, Bernard added, if there's anything I can do. You name it, Terry said dully, still not looking up. So, the scenes of your youth, said Rosalind. He was showing her the playground of his old primary school. It was hard to believe that so much had happened in that small, hard space. Feuds and alliances, fights and friendships, games of stag and five stones. Hard to believe that, apart from getting smaller, it hadn't changed. They leaned their elbows on the green railings that had once loomed above Bernard like the walls of Jericho. They walked around to the chip shop, where he first set eyes on his first girlfriend. The girl herself had married and taken a surname he didn't know. Amazing. It was still a chip shop, with white cracked tiles and brown plastic vinegar shakers. In a third of a century, nothing had been lost, except a sense of anticipation. Rosalind felt she couldn't breathe. So these urban crannies were Bernard's and Terry's patrimony. She herself had been brought up on different farms all over the south with aunts and uncles, while her parents bought and sold, or tried to sell, pipe organs to fairgrounds. She'd spun around in sunlit fields of barley stubble till she fell down. She loved the dizziness, the confusion of up and down, the way the earth fitted against her back as if she were the one supporting it. "Show me the hills," she said. "A stone circle, if there is one." She'd met and married Bernard in Southampton. Till now, all she'd seen of the north was Terry and Jill's wedding in Wilmslow. They hired a car, even though they thought it an extravagance, and set out for Arbor Low. They drove down the A6 through Stockport. In Hazel Grove, they came to a standstill, then crawled at slower than walking pace. Bernard beat his hands on the wheel. "God damn, what's all this traffic? What's happening today? Maybe it's always this bad. You could drive to the hills in half an hour. What's gone wrong?" "Relax, Bernie. There's no hurry." But the tiny car oppressed him. The traffic was packed impossibly tight. The lanes were too narrow. The truck in his mirror was too close. Each time the traffic ahead moved on a yard or two, it roared impatiently and jerked forward. Bernard began to delay moving on, leaving a long gap behind. The truck hooted. Bernard left even longer gaps. The truck pulled sharply into the inside lane to aggrieved hooting from the other traffic, and it roared past. "Did you see that? Stay calm." He drove on, steeling himself to the ridiculous fits and starts, holding back the things he wanted to say. He looked for a King's Cross or an Uncle John's where they could pull in and have a coffee, where they could look across a booth at each other, where he could say, "Who are these people? Where are they all going? And why in cars?" I thought in England people still walked or cycled. Where he could say, "I'm scared, Ros. What are we doing here? What am I doing with my life?"